One of the most humble and simple tools in the kitchen that we use practically every day is the cutting board. So today I wanted to talk to you guys in this short video about some of my favorite cutting boards to use. Hey everyone, it's Olga from Olga's Flavor Factory. Thanks for joining me for another video. First of all, I want to tell you that you do not need a fancy, super expensive cutting board at all. I think it's one of those tools that you can get a budget-friendly option, and there's lots of great options out there that work really well. All of the cutting boards I have right here are not expensive at all. And I do have a good amount of cutting boards, but I do cook a lot. So it comes in handy when I'm cooking a ton of different foods, and I can use different cutting boards without having to wash it multiple times. This one on top is a wooden cutting board, and I use this one a lot for presentation. So cutting boards are great for serving things on. So you can cut up some bread and put it on here, and then you could make a charcuterie board or something like that. So this is great. I've also used wooden cutting boards to put cakes on. So instead of using a cake plate for parties where I'm making a really big cake and the standard cake pans are too small, I'll put it on a cutting board and serve it on there. So it looks very rustic and beautiful. So that is also a good use for it. And I'll show you my other cutting board that's wooden. So this one is really big. I like it when I'm doing a lot of chopping. It's really durable, it's very stable, so when you put it on the counter, it doesn't budge too much at all. A really great trick with any cutting board that you're using to keep it from sliding around and stay in place and not budge at all is to take a paper towel or a thin kitchen towel, wet it, wring it out, and then place it underneath, and it is going to stay put and not move at all. So that is awesome for safety. But also using a cutting board that's really solid and heavy like this one will also keep it in place very well. A wooden cutting board is one of the best for chopping things because the surface is wonderful for slicing. It has just a little bit of give, but it's very solid, and it's not going to dull your blades, which is probably the best part about it. It's also gonna last you for a very long time if you take care of it. And the number one way that you can take care of your cutting board is not to get it too wet. So never put your wooden cutting boards in the dishwasher. You need to wash it by hand. Wood absorbs water, and then when you have that really hot heat in the dishwasher, that combination is the worst for wood. So it can ruin it and also cause the wood to split. While I do love using a wooden cutting board, there are a few cons, and one of those is that you can't put it in the dishwasher. Another one is that it takes a little bit more maintenance, and it's very simple, but you have to remember to do it. So you just have to remember to season it every once in a while, and it's very easy. Let me show you how to do it. All you need is this oil, a paper towel or a kitchen towel, and then take a little bit of that oil and rub it in really well into the cutting board. When I get a new cutting board, I do this in multiple layers. So I'll rub it in on both sides and then on the edges as well. I'll let it sit for a little while. I'll put on another layer, and I do this multiple times, just letting the oil soak into the wood. The oil makes the wood really pop and gives it a little bit of a shine. It keeps it from getting too dry, and it protects the surface and makes it kind of waterproof. After I season the cutting board, I let it sit and dry and let that oil really sink in. Then I'll give it a quick wash and dry it to get rid of any of the extra oil. I do this with wooden spoons as well. So every once in a while when I notice they're getting dry, I'll take the oil in a paper towel and rub the oil in so that it rehydrates them and they are smooth again and beautiful. Don't put your wooden spoons in the dishwasher either because it will dry them out as well and they can split. As you can see, it's very easy to season wooden cutting boards, and once you do it, you don't have to do it for a while. Only when you start noticing that it's getting dry again do you do it again. Another con of wooden cutting boards is that they will absorb odors. So I really don't like using a wooden cutting board for chopping onions or seafood or something like that because it's just not going to be really difficult to get the odor out. While this cutting board is beautiful and it's great for chopping, I don't reach for it all that often unless I'm doing a lot of chopping. In that case, it's worth my time to take it out and then have to wash it by hand. I'm so glad that it actually fits into my sink. It's just the right size to fit into it. Just a little bit more and it wouldn't have fit. And when we still lived in the apartment, this thing was very hard to wash because I would just have to like move it around somehow to get it washed because our sink was much smaller in that apartment. Let's talk about this beauty next, this marble looking board. There's all kinds of different glass cutting boards out there as well. Never ever use your knives on these boards. You're gonna dull your blades, ruin your knives, so please don't ever chop on them. They're not meant for chopping. Something like this with a marble top is great for rolling dough on. It's cold, it's smooth. This one is pretty small, so it would have to be something small that you would roll out. But if you have any of the bigger boards, you can use them for rolling out dough. This board would be beautiful to use for charcuterie, to serve fruit or pastries, breakfast plate, maybe some bagels and toppings or something like that, but it is not for chopping. Let's talk about the cutting board that I use the most often. I've had this cutting board for years and I love the material that it's made from because it doesn't stain very easily. Do you see? And also the knife blade doesn't go in too deeply. You know, sometimes some of the cutting board, they have like super deep marks from the knife. This one doesn't have that at all. And like I said, I've been using it for years and I cook a ton. And this is one of the cutting boards that I'll use the most often. It's just a really great size. It's not too big, it's not too small. And the best part is that I can put it in the dishwasher. It fits in there nicely and it will disinfect my board. So this is why I use this when I cut poultry, meat, seafood, onions. So because of the really hot water in the dishwasher, it disinfects your boards the best. So this is why I use this one for lots of things, and I'm more careful with what I use for the wooden cutting board. I also bought this set from Costco a few years ago. Very inexpensive. I like having the 3 different sizes. There's different colors. You can use the different colors for different things, like maybe save one board and just cut poultry on it, another one saved for just vegetables or whatever. I really like having the 3 different sizes because I can use this small cutting board if I need to chop just a small amount of something really quickly and it's less to wash, and then I can use the bigger cutting boards when I'm cutting more food or something that's bigger. I've had all of these cutting boards for years. They look great. I use them all the time and they're not that stained. There's maybe a little bit of discoloration here and there, like you could see it on this one a little bit, but still it looks great for having used it for years and years. Here's my tip of what I do to prevent stains from seeping into the cutting boards. Just try to wash or at least rinse the cutting board as soon as you can after chopping something that stains. For example, herbs, beets or carrots or something like that. As soon as I chop something that stains, I'll go to the sink and try to rinse it off as quickly as I can. And that really helps to keep that stain from seeping into the cutting board and leaving a big stain. You don't have to run and do it right away, but the sooner you do it, the less likely your cutting board is to stain. Another thing that I've done to get stains out of cutting boards, both plastic and wooden, is to get some coarse salt, sprinkle it on top of the cutting board with a little bit of water. You can also use some lemon juice or even take like half of a lemon, really scrub it, and that coarse salt will help to scrub the board, and the lemon juice, the acidity in it, so that helps as well. But the biggest difference I've noticed is when you rinse the board as soon as you can. The last tip I wanted to share with you about cutting boards is to get a cutting board specifically designated for fruit. See, I even took a Sharpie and wrote fruit on it so that nobody uses it for anything else. That's because cutting boards, wooden cutting boards, plastic cutting boards, they all absorb odors. Nobody wants their strawberries or watermelon to taste like onions, and unfortunately it will transfer. Even if you wash your cutting boards really, really well, you use the dishwasher, it will still have some of that odor left behind. If you don't believe me, give your cutting board a whiff and you'll see that I'm right. Like I said, there's so many inexpensive cutting board options. It's so easy to just have one more extra one so that when you're cutting your fruit salad, it tastes like fruit. not like the peppers and the garlic that you chopped the day before. I chose to get this really big one for fruit because I use it a lot for cutting watermelon and other melons. So when you're cutting something really big, it's really nice to have a big cutting board like this. And then I also have this really small board that I like to use when I'm just cutting a few strawberries for my kids to put on top of their yogurt or something. So this one is really useful to have as well. Even though I try to take good care of my cutting boards and try to prevent stains as much as I can, please don't be too precious with how you use your cutting boards. It's totally normal to have slice marks on there, to have some discoloration. This is a tool where you chop food, so it's normal to have some wear and tear on it. It means you're using it. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As in all my videos, I want them all to be as practical and helpful as possible. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.